This video does not endorse, promote, or glorify any form of illegal or harmful activity. Hey guys, young Psychonaut here and welcome back to another video. A special thanks to my members for supporting me. Thank you so much for the support. This is another tier list video as you have come to expect from me. I know I've made a bunch of these, but they're so much fun and I can just talk about all these different substances in one video. I really like that format. Today we have a overrated/underrated tier list video. This video was actually recommended to me by a viewer, so it was actually a request from the comments. So yeah, if you have any kind of request for a tier list or whatever, just drop it in the comments and maybe I'll make it. So today we're going to rate all these substances that I have tried. I have purposefully not included substances that I haven't tried because I know you guys know my opinion about, for example, cocaine, but I haven't tried it, so it feels a little bit like I cannot really say a lot about it. Of course, I think cocaine is very overrated, but I haven't tried it, so it wouldn't be fair, I guess, to put it in this tier list. So again, these are all the substances that I have tried. Obviously, this is very, very much based on my opinion and opinions of the people that I have around me. So don't confuse this with, for example, the country where you live in. I live in the Netherlands, and here in the Netherlands, some drugs are just more like over or underrated. And I guess in the United States or wherever you are, there's probably very different views on some of these substances, or maybe people don't even know these substances there. So this is really about the people that are around me and in the Netherlands. Yeah, just have that as a reference frame in mind. So if I say, like, for example, alcohol is very overrated, then maybe in your country they don't really drink alcohol like that. But here in the Netherlands, for example, and I'll start with that anyways, it's extremely overrated. Like, I could even make like a new category underneath that says extremely overrated, because here in the Netherlands, alcohol is basically, yeah, like I said in a few videos back, it's not seen as a drug. It is social glue, basically. It is like people don't see any health negatives of alcohol. I've talked to many people also from my own generation about alcohol, and every time I start alluding to the fact that it is very, very harmful to the body, they like, stop talking, I don't want to know, I just don't want to know. And I'm like, how could you not want to know what kind of terrible shit you're putting in your body? Like, at least if you decide to put something terrible in your body, at least have the balls to know how fucking bad you're fucking yourself over, right? I mean, come on. Okay, the fact that you want to drink alcohol, that's fine, that's your choice, but at least have the fucking balls to face the fact, like, what you're doing to yourself and all the people around are doing to themselves. I think that's one of the main reasons it's so overrated, is people just think there's no drawback except for a hangover, not realizing that a hangover is literally your body trying to recover from being poisoned. If you have a hangover regularly, you are literally poisoning yourself regularly. Also, I just hate alcohol as a drug. I've talked about this a lot in my video about drugs that I will never do again, but yeah, alcohol, way too fucking overrated. Way too overrated. And I think we can just put, for example, 2CB, we can just put it in the very underrated. Like, I have heard people talk about 2CB a little bit, but those were mostly people that were like already very like into alternative things in general. And it seems to me that, for example, shrooms and acid are more popular in the Netherlands. Maybe I'm wrong, that's just what I see around me, but I don't really see people talking about 2CB a lot. And if they talk about 2CB, it's very much like, oh yeah, I did it once and it was a very cool trip or whatever. Yeah, I don't really see people talk about 2CB a lot. I guess when they talk about 2CB, it is very positive, so maybe very underrated is a little bit overstated in this sense. But yeah, I don't really see a lot of talk about 2CB. I guess it's up and coming now here in the Netherlands, like more and more people are aware of its existence. But as a psychedelic, a lot of people will gravitate towards 3-MMC or MDMA or things like that, for example, for going out or going to festivals or whatever. So I would say, yeah, it's very underrated. Like, I would not not do 2CB, I guess no, well, actually maybe very low dose 2CB would be kind of cool, like during a show. But yeah, I don't really see a lot of people using this or really reporting on this. So that's why I put it for the Netherlands and very underrated. Maybe I'm just like not in circles where it happens a lot. That could also very much be, but yeah. This is interesting. I would say 4-HOMET is... You know, the thing is with this overrated and underrated thing, I actually have to think about what the perception of other people is about these substances, where I would say, if they're rated accordingly, somewhat underrated. I would say this is somewhat underrated. I have not heard a lot of people about 4-HOMET. I guess most of the comments about 4-HOMET are like from Americans, which is interesting because I thought it was banned there, whereas here in the Netherlands it is totally legal to get online and use and whatever. So yeah, I've not really heard anybody in the Netherlands about 4-HOMET, but every time I hear people about it, they're very positive. So I would say somewhat underrated, maybe even very underrated, because just nobody really knows about it, or really knows that this is just like a psychedelic like shrooms and acid. Maybe they think it's some kind of like weird new amphetamine designer drug or whatever. But yeah, I've never really heard a lot of people except for myself and my friends talk about this, and even then I kind of introduced them to it. So I would say very underrated here in the Netherlands around me. I would say caffeine is somewhat overrated. Like, caffeine is pretty cool for a psychoactive substance. Like, yeah, it's like basically the positives of an upper without all the health negatives, if you don't drink too much, of course. Of course, caffeine has been a productivity tool forever. Caffeine like inspired back in the Renaissance a lot of like conversation and new insights. So in that sense, it's pretty cool, but it's also like people do not seem to get that caffeine can be detrimental for your sleep, for example. I see a lot of people in like restaurants drink espressos after dinner, and it's just like, it doesn't matter if you feel like you fall asleep fast or you sleep good. The fact is, caffeine in your system while you sleep will make your sleep less deep, less long, less good. Just the quality of your sleep will decline significantly with caffeine in your system, which makes you more tired, which makes you want to drink more caffeine. So there is a lot of like negative cycles going on with caffeine use that people are not aware of, and they don't seem to really know that this kind of thing happens to a lot of people. Like, if you hear someone talk about the fact that they cannot like do anything in the morning before their coffee, they're probably sleep deprived. And that is not coming from me. This is actually coming from Matthew Walker, one of the leading sleep scientists in the world, whose book is really good. I would really recommend it, Why We Sleep. And there he also talks about how caffeine can be so detrimental to sleep without anybody really noticing that it is affecting your mental health a lot. So I would say somewhat overrated because people don't really see the dangers of it. Okay, so this one, no, this is going to be controversial maybe in the comments, but yeah, DXM is very underrated. I would say one of the most underrated drugs in this whole list, because people see DXM and they think instantly, oh, that's just a bunch of teenagers trying to get a legal high. And of course, culturally in the United States, that is true. But two things can be true at the same time. They're not mutually exclusive. So DXM can also be a very interesting psychedelic and a very, very interesting drug that in low doses is not very harmful to you. And it can also be true that teenagers are abusing it. So if you like take away the cultural aspect of it, because for example here in the Netherlands nobody's using DXM, no teenagers are using DXM. I've heard it very, very, very sparingly here. So it's really like it is really like a United States, Canada thing, in my perspective. And here, for example, if I talk about DXM, nobody knows what the fuck I'm talking about. I have to like really spell it out what it is. The thing is, DXM is just a fucking interesting pharmaceutical. Like, it binds to the NMDA receptor, it binds to some serotonin receptors, it binds to some opioid receptors. Like, it has an extremely interesting pharmacology, and in my opinion, in low doses, a very, very nice, pleasant effect that will not fuck up your body. Of course, high doses of DXM can be very dangerous and neurotoxic. Please don't do that. And with high doses, I'm just talking about, for me, from my perspective, like 150 milligram plus is already pretty high for me. Like DXM, low doses extremely underrated. Okay, so the next one, I think ketamine is somewhat underrated. Honestly, there's a lot of ketamine use in the Netherlands, and it really seems to me that when people want to try some kind of substance for the first time, except for alcohol and tobacco and weed, they always go to MDMA, where I think that ketamine is way easier to have as your first next substance after like weed and alcohol and tobacco, because it's easier on the body, it's an easier mind space, you can just dose like way easier however you want. Here in the Netherlands, people just think, okay, what is like the next thing that people do? MDMA, whatever, I'll do it. But then for ketamine, somehow they're like, no, that's really like so weird and foreign, and you have to snort it. And I'm like, yeah, no, you can also just do 2-FDCK. Oh, by the way, I put it in here, but yeah, we already have like the 2 here. So just the same with tramadol, O-DSMT, like don't look at this. This is just like, I added this by mistake. Yeah, no, ketamine, I would say somewhat underrated. People don't really seem to understand that I do not binge ketamine. I literally, if I get a gram of 2-FDCK, I can do like months with that shit. I'm not kidding. Like I do very, very, very low dose of ketamine. And in that context, it is super fun and has virtually no drawbacks. Of course, people will comment about bladder issues, etc., etc. These issues will only become apparent if you like binge a gram of ketamine, or like if you do ketamine 3 days in a row, or like that is just not the way that I'm consuming ketamine. If you do it like that, if you like binge grams or whatever, like that's not good for you. But let's say you've never taken ketamine, you just want to try something. Ketamine is just somewhat underrated in that sense, because people just don't see it as this fun thing that you can do with. If you do it like once, it's pretty much no real consequences to it from my point of view. Again, don't take this advice from me solely, do your own research, but that is how I view it personally. So I guess the same is for 2-FDCK, but I would say this is even very, very underrated because people don't really know about 2-FDCK. I mean, you can literally go on the research chemical websites where I buy this, and you can see like a few tens of people bought it this week or whatever. On a population in the Netherlands of like substance users, that is so small. Like if I talk to people about 2-FDCK, they're like, huh? And I'm like, okay, yeah, it's ketamine, but you can take it basically orally. And they're like, oh, that's very cool, but I've never heard about that. And also like going out, like even if there's ketamine, there's almost never people that do 2-FDCK. Even though personally, I like 2-FDCK in some aspects way more than ketamine. Like the feeling of it is not something to write home about per se, but the fact that you can take it orally, that you don't have to deal with a drip, that it takes like 3 to 4 hours instead of like an hour is like extremely valuable to me. If I just want to watch a cool movie, I'll just take like 30 milligrams of 2-FDCK, which is basically a threshold dose. And then I'll just watch the movie for a few hours. And yeah, with ketamine, you have to redose the whole time. You have to deal with the drip. So I can't really eat anything in between because I don't like eating when I have a drip, etc. I would say 2-FDCK, from my perspective, not really a lot of people know about it. Very, very underrated. Especially because you can take it orally. That's just like the main crutch for me where it really shines. Okay, 3-MMC is very overrated. Like I've heard a lot of people in the Netherlands talk about 3-MMC. I know a lot of people who take 3-MMC, and they really seem to think it's some kind of like better MDMA. And I'm just gonna tell you guys right now, it is not. And also it is very, very neurotoxic also at low doses. I mean, MDMA can be argued is very neurotoxic at high doses, but there's a lot of debate in the scientific community about low dose MDMA being neurotoxic, and the evidence seems to suggest it is not very neurotoxic low doses. 3-MMC, any other synthetic ketamine, is always neurotoxic by design, and it's very overrated. Like all these people just talk about like, oh yeah, it's really good, I prefer it over MDMA, this and that, but then when you talk about them about like how bad it is, they're like, oh, I didn't really know that. Again, just like with alcohol, like people are not aware of the dangers of this at all. They like just take it like it's MDMA, and there's a lot of stories about, and also like actual news stories about people in the Netherlands like getting fucked up on 3-MMC. And I'm not talking about getting high and fucked up. I'm talking about like fucking up their whole life because they're so addicted to this shit. And I mean, yeah, it is so fucking fiendish. Every time I did it, I had to redose multiple times. It is just one of the most addicting party drugs that you can have right now, and it's really fucking popular. I don't really understand why. I guess I do understand why, because it makes you feel good. It makes your dopamine spike. Does it actually make you have a good time? In my opinion, not really. It's very much, for me, it was very much, oh, I'm spiked on dopamine, therefore I want to do more. But I never really felt a moment on 3MC where I was like, wow, this is like a really cool state of consciousness to be in. I've never really thought that on any upper, by the way, but especially on 3MC, it just felt like I was just a fiend trying to get my new like kick. I would say, for example, acid is somewhat underrated, maybe rated accordingly. Like, people love acid. Also here in the Netherlands, people love acid. Everybody that I talk about is basically positive about it, especially if they tried it. They say like it changed my life positively, etc., etc. So I would say it's not underrated or overrated. It's kind of like rated accordingly. Like, everybody sees the value of acid. Maybe it's somewhat underrated because a lot of quote unquote normies do not seem to understand the positives of acid and like tripping from time to time. But I would say it's probably around me. It's rated pretty accordingly. There's no real hype about it, but there's also not really a group that doesn't recognize what its potential is. So I would say rated accordingly. Okay, so benzos are somewhat overrated. Somewhat because I don't really see a lot of people talk about benzos here in the Netherlands. It's not really very popular. I would say alcohol is way more popular than benzos, and it kind of gives you the same kind of vibe and feeling of just like inebriation. Also, people in the Netherlands see benzos more as sleeping pills. So that's why I also put them in somewhat overrated, because they will not make you sleep properly. They will put you in a hypnotic state, which will block REM sleep, etc., etc. This is not natural sleep that you get from taking a sleeping pill, in quote unquote. People will actually think it's helping them while it's not helping them at all. So I would say probably somewhat overrated. Same goes for like anxiety. Yes, there are a very, very small subset of people that can use small doses of benzos for a short time to treat their anxiety. If you do it anything longer than a few months, you're probably already physically hooked on them. Your tolerance will build up, just like with me. I started with 0.5 milligram and it took me out. Then about half a year later, I was already taking 10 milligrams at a time. I think also a big part of people that use it to treat anxiety would actually do way better if they do sports, yoga, meditation, all these things that I talked about in my video about how I beat my benzo addiction. But yeah, the anxiety is not going to go away if you take away the physical side of the anxiety. Like, it really feels like you're clearing out your head, but you're actually just putting it all in the back, and once the benzos wear off, it will come back. So I would say it's somewhat overrated because the tools for which it is used, it is not really that useful for. I would say the only legitimate use for benzos is to stop seizures, is to have like acute seizure management. Then they're very safe and good for that. But like even for anxiety treatment, I would say do psychotherapy, do meditation, do sports, do yoga, get good like social connections, and it will be way better than whatever benzos can provide for you. Really, believe me. Okay, so I think the next MDMA, it is somewhat overrated. Even though MDMA is really cool, it's really fun, very cool and technogenic. One of my first substances that I tried after weed. But I think people don't really see the negatives of MDMA here in the Netherlands. They just think it's a fun party drug. And yeah, I mean, there is a real dip in MDMA, and there is a real there is a neurotoxic component if you take a lot. And it is not very good for you if you take like the normal pills that are here in the Netherlands are like 200 milligrams. Is way too much. Like, if you take MDMA like below or around 100 milligrams, I would say pretty rated accordingly. But no, like, that's not how people take MDMA here in the Netherlands. They take way too much in environments that are often not very good. I mean, yeah, MDMA is really fun, but after a few times, and I've done MDMA about 20 times in my life, like the last few times that I did it, it was just not that magical anymore. It just felt like a little bit more warm upper, I would say, for me personally. Like again, the first time I did MDMA, it was totally fucking eye-opening, almost psychedelic experience. But for me now, I would say it's a little bit overrated. Like there are way more fun things you can do. For example, 2CB, which gives you more interesting visuals, in my opinion, better entactogenic feelings, and it doesn't really tire you out that much, and it doesn't really give you that dip afterwards. So for me personally, I would say MDMA a little overrated. So weed, I would say it is somewhat underrated. Weed is very popular in the Netherlands, but there's also a lot of people in the Netherlands that use weed and are very critical about it, where I'm like, why are you using it then? That's kind of weird to me. Like, I don't like alcohol. I don't use alcohol. It's very simple. I don't like cocaine. I don't use cocaine. So why are you a stoner that's also like, yeah, but like it's not good for me, etc.? Like, don't do it then. That's like, I don't know. It seems like people are kind of like, and some people also see weed as like this miracle plant that can't do anything wrong in the United States. But here in the Netherlands, people don't really see weed like that. People see weed, I guess, more like oh yeah, it's kind of like, it's just fun, it's just whatever. And yeah, I know a lot of people cannot like handle weed in their body like some people can, but I would say it's somewhat underrated still. And also, especially like in the Netherlands, they just smoke spliffs, so that means tobacco and probably some haze or something. Yeah, of course, if you're gonna smoke that all day, which I also did for a year, you're basically gonna go insane. Only THC, high THC, only THC weed with tobacco is not gonna be good for your mental health. And that's where I think a lot of the stigmas around weed come from in the Netherlands, is from not actually consuming pure weed, but just adulterating with a bunch of bullshit. I think personally, if people in the Netherlands that like weed started smoking good indicas with vaporizers, with like more bongs or dabs, I think it will be rated higher. But that's why I'm saying as of now it's somewhat underrated in the Netherlands, which sounds crazy because it's like literally the place where people go to smoke weed. But that's like mostly tourists that go to Amsterdam, and actual people in the Netherlands self kind of like look down on it a little bit still. Yeah, especially if you're not a stoner. Nitrous oxide, I would say it is somewhat overrated because it is fun, and once or twice or a few times is not gonna hurt you that much. It is really when people get like tanks of nitrous and just huff hundreds of balloons in a night and totally asphyxiate themselves. Like, people in the Netherlands don't really seem to realize how dangerous doing a lot of nitrous can be. Like, I have been to friends' party where they have like tanks of nitrous and people were just huffing it like it was fucking like they were just drinking water. It was insane, and it's not even that fun. Like, nitrous, yeah, it's fun for like a little kick for the evening or whatever, but like huffing nitrous for hours, it's just not fun. Yeah, maybe your brain will be a little bit buzzed, but damn, it's like people don't really seem to realize how fucked up you can get from this. A lot of people get hospitalized from doing too much nitrous, especially from like, as I said, not getting enough oxygen to the brain. I think it's a little bit too popular for like what it is, especially if you look at like how dangerous it is. Okay, so O-DSMT, I would say I don't really hear anybody about it. I've never heard anybody talk about O-DSMT outside of me and my best friend, so I don't really know what the consensus is. But I would say it's probably a little underrated, and maybe because, I don't know, I feel like nobody really knows about it. Everybody in the Netherlands knows about tramadol, so this is like a very small step to take. And this is also the only opioid type designer drug that's currently available and not total ass. So I would say it's probably somewhat underrated. I don't really hear anybody about this, but it's pretty okay. I would say it's more fun than tramadol if you like a more sedative type vibe. But yeah, it's not really that good like a classical opioid or like a prescription opioid. So that's why I say somewhat underrated. So tobacco, this is really fun. I would say somewhat overrated because I would put it rated accordingly because everybody in society thinks that tobacco is bad for you. But there's like a trend among mostly, I would say, my generation, so that's like Gen Z and around Gen Z, where like people know that tobacco is bad for them and they actively do it still, and they actively say like, oh yeah, I'm just fucking myself up. I was one of these people where when I smoked tobacco, we were always joking about, oh, can you give me another cancer stick? And it was always like this kind of self-deprecating humor, kind of this emo vibe of, yeah, we don't care about shit, we're fucking up our body type shit. And it's very popular at parties. A lot of Dutch like young people smoke at parties, and I would say it's still like pretty fucking bad for you. And like I talked about in my other video about substances that I'll never try again, tobacco really catapulted me into like heavy drug use. So I don't think a lot of people understand that tobacco can have like a really bad influence on you. It can really like propel you to do more alcohol or more other things, or cocaine or whatever. I don't put it in very overrated because yes, the whole Dutch society is basically on one line that tobacco is fucking bad for you. Really something you shouldn't do. So that's why it's not very overrated, but somewhat overrated. But there's still a lot of people that kind of see this and then they're like, yeah, whatever, I'll just don't care really about the bad things. I guess tramadol, I would say it's rated accordingly. Like everybody in the Netherlands knows about tramadol. This is like the go-to basically next step after like an NSAID if you want to do any kind of pain control. So in the Netherlands they don't prescribe like anything like oxycodone or whatever, all those kinds of like synthetic opioids, not being prescribed by doctors, only if you have like crazy surgery or whatever. And even I with my knee surgery didn't get it. I didn't even get tramadol for my knee surgery. So like here in the Netherlands they are really sparing with this shit, but everybody knows it because everybody has had a person or they themselves had like an injury where the other painkillers didn't work enough, and they were like, okay, fuck it, we'll give you some tramadol for like a few days, for like 5 or 6 days. And that's basically how everybody in the Netherlands knows tramadol, and everybody's just like, yeah, it dulls the pain, but it's not very recreational. And I guess everybody understands kind of like the place tramadol has within substance society. So I would say it's pretty rated accordingly. Okay, so shrooms, I would say it is also rated accordingly in the Netherlands. Everybody knows what shrooms are. I would say maybe a little bit underrated because a lot of people still think that a shroom trip is just getting some weird visuals and that's it. No, it's really way much deeper than that. But also I know a lot of people know about this in the Netherlands, so it is very much like somewhere in between here. I would say somewhat underrated maybe. Ritalin, somewhat overrated maybe. If you are actually using this from a prescribed doctor and it's helping you, like a lot of people in my life, power to you. That's really cool. I'm really talking about the people that do not need any kind of Ritalin and are using it, for example, for studying or other things like that. And I would say, yeah, it's not really that good. For me, it has so many side effects. No libido, no sleep, I don't want to eat. But also it's like very much, it doesn't really help you with studying. Like it feels like it helps you with studying, but there have been, I think, a lot of studies about this where they gave people Ritalin and some people not, and they tried to test them after, and the Ritalin people did not score any better. I would say somewhat overrated because it doesn't really actually make you that much better in anything. It just gives you the feeling that you're more productive. I would say a little overrated. Poppers are rated accordingly. Yeah, you like them or you like them not. People don't really know about poppers except if you're gay, and if you're gay, you know what it's about. It's not really overhyped or undersold. It's just like, yeah, it just is what it is. Codeine, and this is, I think it's actually somewhat overrated because, I mean, yeah, I think codeine is pretty fun, but codeine has been seen in the Dutch scene as this really cool, like, opioid and, like, rap drug that's like you can sip it, and it's very much tied to this like trapping and very much tied to this like alternative internet rap thing. And I would say it's pretty good, but it's not that good, and it's pretty fucking expensive in the Netherlands to get real codeine, to get good codeine. I've tried it a few times with real codeine. I've tried it a bunch of times with like over-the-counter codeine. It can be pretty fun, but it's not that intense, I would say, to where it deserves the status it's given. Dextroamphetamine, I would say, rated accordingly. People know what it is. It's like Ritalin, but the people don't really use dextroamphetamine for like studying. So it's more like, for example, my friend uses it when he wants to go clubbing, and he uses a very low amount just to stay a little bit more alert. I don't really see people talk about it a lot. It's just like, it's there if you want to use it. I don't really see it used a lot, so I don't really see how it's overrated. But yeah, so yeah, as you can see, this is not like, this list is not about if they're good or not good. It's more about how people perceive them and how fun I think they are. So really keep that in mind when you look at this list. Obviously we got some favorites up in here. I think these are, especially DXM, is just so underrated. People don't use it correctly and then they think it's shit. If you use it correctly, like I've told you many times, you can really have a really safe and good time on DXM. And also like 3MC, so fucking overrated here in the Netherlands. Like so many people are using it and so many people are actually saying like, I don't really actually like it that much, but it's just so dopamine rich, I just keep doing it. Yeah, I hope you guys like the video. These are of course only my opinions and not the end all and say all of it. This is my perspective on things. Thank you guys for watching and I'll see you in the next one.